Hi everyone, and welcome to this video tutorial where we're going to be looking at affordance analysis, which was a topic that came up in the lecture and one that we want to sort of look at it on a deeper level, particularly with two tools that we commonly use for note taking. Now, on the screen, you can see on the left-hand side, I have the affordance analysis table that Associate Professor Matt Bauer presented in the lecture. And you might remember he looked at two kinds of technologies for affordance analysis, and those were wikis and web conferencing. So in this example, we're going to look at two reasonably similar tools, and we're actually going to do an affordance comparison of these tools so that we can see really what do the tools make possible, what are the areas that they excel in, and maybe what are some of their weaknesses, or things that they don't do either so well or at all. So to begin with, let's look at OneNote. Now, I've got OneNote sitting here on the right-hand side. Underneath it, I have Google Keep, which I'll show you shortly afterwards. But to begin with OneNote, if we have a look at a blank notebook that I've just created, we're going to see first up what sort of media affordances are possible using OneNote. Now, with OneNote, you might be familiar with it. It organizes information into tabs and pages, so you can create new tabs and new pages at any time. I've just created a little test page here just to show you. This is obviously a blank page, and let's start to explore what are some of the media affordances that are possible. So the first one is, of course, text, and if I start typing, it's pretty straightforward. And of course I can read that text, I can write that text. So for these sort of things, OneNote should be getting scores out of 5, and we should probably just give them 5 out of 5 for these, okay, because reading and writing, very straightforward. I can also change the font, so if I wanted to make this bigger, if I wanted to italicize, and so on, it should be very easy to change all of that. Now, so reading and writing is fine. When we get to images, if we look at, say, inserting, and we look at the insert tab here, we can see we get options for inserting things like screen clippings, which is quite a handy tool. So if I click this, for example, it then prompts me to grab a section of the screen, which then gets added in. So I've just added the table in as a screen clipping. I can also do a picture that's sitting on my desktop if I wanted. I can also do online pictures. So for example, if I do a Bing search for affordances, and I get some possible images here, and I insert that, it just downloads it and inserts it in there. So there's absolutely no problem with viewing images and so on. When I get to looking at listening and speaking and watching and producing video, let's see how OneNote performs here. Well, in terms of listening, it really depends on having audio in the OneNote to begin with. So if I actually look at the ability to speak and record, that's something that OneNote does allow. So you can see here with the insert menu again, I get this option to record audio, and of course I can click that, and then when I click that, it's going to start recording audio, and the audio is going to go straight in there. I could do the same with video. So if I click this, for example, and it opens up the webcam, and I've got my my image there, and I just record, and I close that when it's done, and then the video goes straight in there. And of course it's going to have the audio as well to that. So recording audio, and I've got my my image there, and I just record, and and that works. So you can see here that audio and video work quite well, and I can obviously listen, I can watch, I can speak, and I can produce video. All of those things are really easy. You can see I'm giving OneNote scores of 5 out of 5 for all of these areas because it is really just so easy to do that. If I had a YouTube video, I can easily just copy and paste it straight in. It is really very easy. Now, if I go back to the insert menu, those are all of the things that we've been exploring. What about when I get to this drawer? So drawing is something that OneNote really excels at. If I click draw and I can select one of these tools, for example. Now I'm using a cheap stylus that I bought on eBay, but you can see I can actually just draw over everything. I can even select the highlighter tool here and I can start to highlight things. So, for example, quick brown fox, and so on. So you can see their drawing is very, very easy. It's also very sophisticated in what it let you do. Resizing and moving. If we have a look at this, to resize things is quite easy. Of course, there's a little bit of a pain of having to then move that highlighting, and this one as well. So if you're annotating, it's a little bit finicky to get all the things to move at once. I could, if I wanted to, just select everything. So for example, if you select multiple things, you can then resize them all together. But resizing and moving is just generally not a problem. It's generally pretty easy to do. So I'm going to give them a score of 5 out of there and 5 for move. The anywhere, anytime access is pretty good with OneNote. So this is when we get into what's it like accessing the tool on other devices. So for example, if I just had a web browser, can I access OneNote? And yes, I can. It's actually quite easy to do, but I can also access it on a mobile device using things like an Android phone, for example, or an iPhone or an iPad, a laptop. Very easy to access OneNote. So the anywhere, anytime access again gets a score of 5. I then get into recording and playing back, and recording, this is referring to time. So when I go to look at, I'm going to go to an older resource here, and I'm going to use the history tab. So you'll see here, when I click on history and I go to page versions and I click that, I basically get into different versions. And when I also look at the recent edits, I can go all pages sorted by date, and then I get a full history of the things that were done and what was sort of recorded, what was added at that stage, and I can sort that. I can go back to previous versions and see at that point this is what I was doing, so this is today, and then earlier back in 2016 this is what I did, and you can see the different dates and so on. So as I was developing this resource, I was adding certain things. So it does record quite well. Playing back, I can see easily, it's easy to just click on an event and sort of play that back. It requires me to do it manually, so I'm really happy to give it a 5 for recording. For playing back, it's probably more like a 3. And then we get into synchronous interaction. So this is to do with sharing. Is it easy to share OneNote files? And the answer is yes, it is. When you go File and you go Share, I can share with people. I can give people, anyone with a link can edit it. So in this case, anyone can just grab that link, put it straight in a browser, and start to interact with that OneNote resource. So it is very, very easy to interact. And I'm going to give it a 5 for that. We get into then the navigation affordances, and this is where OneNote again excels. If we look at links that we can create, for example, over here, I've got a page that I've linked to. So I've got a discovery page, I've got the strategies page. So if I click on discovery, it takes me to the discovery page. If I click on this little link for interpretation, it takes me to that. So to create links within the OneNote, really easy. To create links to outside pages, very, very easy. Just Control K after you've selected some text, and then you can type in your address. So links are definitely not a problem. Excels very well there. Manipulating data is, as you've seen, very, very easy to do. Searching, we haven't looked at that yet. Let's have a look at searching. So when I type in things like space, you can see it grabs all of the pages where space, the word space features, and it's very easy to find those pages and to navigate to those pages. So searching is really easy. Browsing is really easy. And then we get to things like highlighting, and you can see here I've done a little bit of that already. I've shown you with the draw tool, for example, the highlighter works really, really well. So it's very easy just to highlight certain sections of text, for example, or to highlight diagrams and so on. So highlighting is no problem at all. Where I get to this one here, indicating the focus real time, this is to do with using the resource in a real-time setting online, for example, and this is simply not possible with OneNote. If I was face-to-face with a class, I could certainly emphasize the focus of a OneNote tool, but within OneNote, very limited. To do this in real time is not possible. I could do it via videos, for example, and record a video of me at the start of the OneNote file where I ask students to direct their attention to certain things. So I can certainly use video for that purpose, or audio, but to do it in real time is not possible. So I have to score it 0 for that. To use multiple tools, I hope you've seen here, it is actually possible to use a whole range of tools in here, ranging from pictures to video to audio to annotations, eraser, the lasso effect. There's a whole range of tools here, so definitely giving it 5 for that. Integrating tool functions, again I'm going to give it 5. You can see there's just so many functions to integrate here. I can do things like insert and grab a spreadsheet, for example, and drop a spreadsheet in there. So that's a really cool thing if I was working on a spreadsheet and wanted to embed it in a OneNote file. Now, setting permissions, I've got a few choices here. OneNote is very, very good when you set up a class notebook. You can even lock off certain tabs and things and set up permissions to those tabs and give students access to some tabs and not others. So permissions are no problem at all. And then sharing content like files. For example, here I've got the insert option and file attachments. I can just click attach file attachment, and as soon as I click that, I get an option. I'm just going to say let's click a document, insert it, attach that as a file, and in it goes. And you can see it's just a little underneath here, just a little Word icon, and of course double clicking that's then going to open the document. So to share files couldn't be easier, drag and drop and so on. So I'm going to give it a 5 there. So you can see here, OneNote is one of these tools that is designed to be incredibly versatile, and it does perform very well against pretty much all of these affordances. I wonder how Google Keep does. Let's give this a look and let's have a little look here. I'm going to, I've got a whole bunch of notes that I've used here before, and you'll be able to see things like images are going to be very straightforward. I can certainly insert images and so on, but let's start with a blank note. I'm going to call this test note, and I'm going to have a look and see what is possible in Google Keep. So straight away, it shouldn't be difficult to do my text. So reading and writing, no problem. So, I mean, certainly there's no problem with writing, and certainly there's not going to be any problem with reading. Viewing images, it shouldn't be a problem. So you can see I can add an image very easily there. I can also, one of the cool things in Google Keep is to add a screen clipping, much the same as I did in OneNote. So for example, if I'm on a Windows device, a Windows 10 particularly, I can hold Windows Shift and press S and grab a clipping of the table and simply paste it directly into my Google Keep note. So images, viewing and so on, no problem. If I put 5 for viewing images, that's no issue. Now I get into listen and watch, and this is where we're getting into some of the limitations. If I look at these options that exist here in Google Keep and I click the more, you'll see there's actually no option to add a recording, be it a video recording or an audio recording. So whereas Microsoft OneNote, I could just simply click video recording, in it went straight away. I can't do that directly in Google Keep, nor can I do an audio recording. However, it's worth pointing out that I'm using the web version at this stage, and if you were using the mobile version, whether that's iOS or Android, you can do an audio recording. It's very, very easy to do. You just add audio recording, and straight from your phone or your tablet, you can record audio directly into Keep. So it's one of these areas where if we look at speak, there's limitations because I can do that using the mobile version. However, I can't do that using the web version. And if I use the web version every day, I'm going to be limited by that. So I can't give Google Keep a full mark out of 5 for that. I might say give it a 2 or a 3. We get into listening, and that's going to be the same sort of limitation because if I can't add audio, it's going to be very hard to listen back to it. Obviously, I can do that using the mobile version, however. Now, video is limited too. So if I do a search here, and I'm going to type in YouTube because I have some YouTube videos, you can see it's put little thumbnails. In this one, I had a series of notes that I was taking, and I was adding YouTube videos, but I can only do those as a link. And so I can watch that video, but it's going to take me from Google Keep to the website in question. So really, yes, I can watch videos, but it's rather limited. It's not embedded in the note. So I'm going to give it maybe a 1 for watching. Now, producing video, it's simply not possible. Not in the web version and not in the mobile version at this time of writing. So for producing video, I'm going to give it a 0. What about drawing? Well, you might see that as I was looking at that new note a minute ago, one option existed under the More settings for adding a drawing, and I can click that. And much as I did with the Microsoft OneNote tool, it's pretty much the same here. So I can do a simple drawing. I can also do a highlight. You can see it's a blank drawing though. So whereas I could do it with straight out, I could do it with just draw directly on OneNote. I can't draw directly in this case. But when I click the back button, the drawing goes in there. And so there's some limitations there. I can certainly draw, but it's certainly not as sophisticated as I could do with OneNote. So I might give it a 3 for that. And you can see here, there's some limitations already. If I look at spatial affordances, I certainly can, I can resize things. I can go, for example, to this drawing I did a minute ago and grab it and then resize. So there is the option to resize. I can't resize my text. There is no font size option within Google Keep. So I can resize some things, but really not most. I can't resize this image. So really only resizing drawings. So I might say, look, I'm going to give it a 1. Moving stuff, I'm again fairly limited. I can move a whole note. I can't really move a drawing around once it's in there. So beyond just moving a whole note, I'm pretty limited. So there is the moving option, but it's pretty limited. Anywhere, anytime access is fine in Google Keep. I can use it on my phone, on my tablet, on the web, and it should work perfectly wherever I access it. So I'm going to give it a 5. Now, recording. Of course, it does record the changes that I make. So if you see this one says edited 1505, it tells me it was edited then. It also tells me it was created 1457. So if I go to an older note, for example, like a receipt, edited 10th of January, created 10th of January. So it tells me the editing date and the creating date. Beyond that, it's somewhat limited. So I'm going to really say it's a 1 at that point. It's not going to give me a full list of the history like I could get with OneNote. Playing back is really limited. I can't really do anything there because I can only see when it was created and edited. Now, synchronous interaction is generally not a problem with Google Keep. I can easily synchronously edit something on a phone or the web. I can also, to some degree, share things with people. For example, I can go copy this document to Google Docs and share that with colleagues. So there is the option for synchronous interaction, but it's still a little bit limited. It's not as straightforward as just sharing a whole OneNote project. So I might say maybe a 2 out of 5. Browsing content should be no problem with Google Keep. Searching content should be effortless in Google Keep. You can see this is a Google tool, so naturally the search is pretty good. So as soon as I type in something like YouTube, all my notes that have YouTube come up. As soon as I use the tabs here, so for example, finance, all of my finance stuff comes up, accounts and so on, blog posts. So you can see here, this is really easy to search and browse. Manipulating data should be no problem. just changing notes and so on. And creating links is also no problem. It's really easy to add a link in Google Keep. Now, when we get to highlight, I'm somewhat limited. So for example, I can't make something bold. I can highlight within a note like I did here, but I'm still a bit limited. I couldn't just scribble all over a note and just highlight anything I like I could do with OneNote. So I might sort of say 2 out of 5 for that. Indicating the focus real time is not possible with Google Keep, nor was it in OneNote. Using multiple tools, you can see here things like drawings and so on, images, things like that I can do. But there's not a whole range of tools that I had like I had with OneNote. Integrate tool functions. I'm a little bit limited here. Again, I might sort of say really two for that, because there's some limits about what I can and can't integrate. Setting permissions is not that hard because it's pretty straightforward when you need to set some permissions. As long as I share things appropriately with a Google Doc, for example, it's pretty easy to share. But to share whole notes and notebooks is not as easy. And then finally, when you want to share files, this is something that really Google Keep does not allow, because you could see with OneNote it was easy to just drag and drop a file in. With Google Keep, it's really not possible. The best I could do would be to link from something like a Google Doc, for example. So it's possible to do, but there are some real limits around doing it. So you can see here, this affordance comparison shows that Microsoft OneNote has way more affordances than Google Keep, and perhaps a better way to put it would be to say that it has stronger affordances. It can do these things in a far more compelling way than Google Keep can do. Should I conclude, therefore, that Microsoft OneNote is simply the better tool? Well, the answer is not necessarily. From a learning design point of view, it might be better for some purposes. So if I was doing an extended research task where students had to take detailed field notes and record audio and video and so on, I might go with OneNote. But if I was doing something in Google Keep, for example, like something simple, like a simple research task where I just wanted students to simply record down notes, take a few images as they went, and basically just keep a record that way, Google Keep might be the better choice. So the answer is it really depends on you. It depends on the task that you set students. But doing this affordance comparison means that you can make an informed choice about which tool is better for the job at hand. So hopefully you found this video helpful, and when you do your own affordance comparison, you'll come away with a robust understanding of what the affordances are, and therefore perhaps which tool might be the better tool for the job at hand.